50% chance, and not even this year, but next year also modest, nothing as grand as President Trump has been touting.
Absolutely. So at Barclays Research, we outlined this in a recent memo where we talked about if you had temporary tax cuts, $1 to $2 trillion over 10 years, permanent tax reform, something that was deficit neutral, things that we don't hear too much about right now, as well as what happens if nothing happens. My outlook has stayed the same. I'm not nearly as bullish as some of the other folks, thinking that you're definitely going to get a tax cut or tax reform. I can see a modest tax cut happening, probably not this calendar year, more likely after January, and sometime in Q1, maybe early Q2 of next year.
Sean, there have been leaks here and there. We've gotten some insight into what's being discussed among the members of the House Ways and Means Committee, but it's been a fairly quiet process. Is that promising to you, the fact that it seems to be pretty self-contained? And yes, we're hearing what the hot button issues might be, but we're not seeing a lot of infighting, at least not publicly.
That's always a good thing. You want them talking with each other, the administration coordinating with the Senate and the House. Very important to me is how does the Freedom Caucus deal with this in the House? And on the Senate side, people like Corker, Warner, McCain, they've obviously been in the news as of late. And I'm curious to see how their relationship with the leadership in terms of talking about tax cuts, tax reform goes along. So that is definitely positive news.
Still a hot button issue is the state and local tax deductions, which you do not think are politically viable when it comes to a full repeal. We've heard from Representative Tom Reed last week that there was a push to shift not towards a salt deduction repeal, but just another type of credit for the middle class. What form could another revenue raiser take?
Absolutely, and this is something we also addressed in the memo. Our municipal teams went through that. And we do think you could see some limits to the state and local deduction, as you could see that with a lot of other areas. Keep in mind what it raises. I believe it's $370 billion over 5 years. So that does help you cut taxes quite a bit to help get that revenue offset, but you're probably not going to see a full removal of salt. You'll probably see some limits on that.
How much does gradualism matter? There's some Bloomberg News reporting today that the committee is considering phasing in, for instance, changes to that deduction. Does that matter to you when you look at how that might affect the deficit or what it might mean for the prospects of passing the legislation?
Well, if you think about a 10-year score from the CBO, that does help quite a bit. People have asked me, do you think if they got tax reform done in early 2018, would they make it retroactive for January 1? There's good possibility they'll actually go for January 1, 19, simply to get that extra year of revenue in the 10-year score. So if you think about gradually changing the rates or having these changes put forward to the corporate or individual tax side, you do get to keep some of that revenue in that long-term 10-year score.